Welcome back to the Amy McManus Show on AM 1480 WLEA. I got this great email forward the other day, and I looked it up to make sure it was legit, and it is. I'll try to describe it to you. It's basically a photograph of what appears to be congresspersons or some kind of legislators. The camera's behind them and took this little snapshot, and let's see, there looks like someone's playing spider solitaire, another one's playing regular solitaire, somebody's on Facebook. Somebody's looking at baseball scores, and I looked it up on Snopes, and it is legitimate. A lot of people are claiming it's in Congress, but when you read it, it's clearly not. It actually occurred in the Connecticut House of Representatives, and the House Minority Leader, Lawrence Caffaro, Republican, is standing there talking, giving some speeches, because the House had convened to vote on a new budget. And let's see, Barbara Lambert, Democrat, Jack Hennessy, Democrat, among others, are sitting there playing computer games while the state is waiting with bated breath as to what kind of budget these guys are going to come out with. The photo was taken by a photographer named Jessica Hill, who says she's been criticized from both sides of the aisle, claiming the pic is fake. She says she takes her job very seriously and that there's absolutely nothing false about the photo. This comes from Snopes. Representative Hennessy issued an apology. He said, "It was certainly bad judgment for me to play a computer game, even for just a few minutes," yeah, right, "during the final House session on the budget. I'm embarrassed, and I apologize to each and every person in the North End and to people across the state. My actions were inexcusable. I do want my constituents to know that my poor judgment for a few moments on Monday in no way means I ignored your interests in representing you in this very serious matter, blah, 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 blah. I sincerely apologize to each of you." Okay, that's the second time he apologized. "I look forward to having the continued privilege of representing you and your interests in Hartford. I thank you in advance for your understanding and have been humbled by those of you who have already expressed your understanding and forgiveness." I'm not sure his apology is going to mean much. I suppose we've all done it. But, I mean, really? During a session? He may want to start fundraising now for the next election. He's going to need some dollars. In rare public comments on the dollar, Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke said the U.S. Central Bank was monitoring currency markets closely and will conduct a policy in a way that will, quote, "help ensure that the dollar is strong," unquote. But the dollar, as I've mentioned on this show previously, keeps falling against other major currencies. Mr. Bernanke also continued with saying that the recovery would gain traction in spite of what he calls headwinds from credit and unemployment, while inflation was likely to remain subdued. He said that the Fed still expected to keep rates near zero for an extended period, although he stressed that this was a conditional forecast, not a commitment. Do you know why it can't be a commitment? They have to raise interest rates at some point. They can't keep going on like this. I hope everyone understands that and prepares for it. Now, in the same week that Bernanke said this, Nouriel Roubini, a noted economist, wrote for the New York Daily News. He said this, quote, "We can expect that job losses will continue until the end of 2010 at the earliest. In other words, if you are unemployed and looking for work and just waiting for the economy to turn the corner, you better hunker down. All the economic numbers suggest this is going to take a while. The jobs are just not coming back. The long-term picture for workers and families is even worse than current job loss numbers alone would suggest. As a way of sharing the pain, many firms are telling their workers to cut hours, take furloughs, and accept lower wages. Specifically, that fall in hours worked is equivalent to another 3 million full-time jobs lost on top of the 7 million jobs formerly lost." That from Nouriel Roubini from the New York Daily News. So, as usual, our top money guy is completely at odds with the top economists all across the country. In other news across the country, the latest statistics on sexually transmitted diseases out of the CDC says that chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis, the three most highly treatable sexually transmitted infections, continue to spread in the United States. John Douglas, director of the Division of Sexually Transmitted Diseases at the CDC, boy, you'd be proud of that job. Chlamydia and gonorrhea are at unacceptably high levels, and syphilis is resurgent after being almost eliminated. We have among the highest rates of STDs in any developed country in the world, he said. The Obama administration has signaled a willingness to move away from the so-called abstinence-only sex ed, and conservatives are upset by this, and this article is indicating that people are going to make a big deal about these CDC figures and claim that we need more sex ed. And indeed, that did happen. Douglas said, "We haven't been promoting the full battery of messages. We have been sending people out with one seatbelt instead of the whole car." That's a good analogy, I suppose. I've got a better one. How about we don't let 9-year-olds drive a car? Simple, no? Anyway, the study found chlamydia up 1.1 million. Adolescent girls 15 to 19 have the most chlamydia and gonorrhea cases of any age group. Thank God the feminists taught all those girls about sex and that promiscuity is okay. African Americans, who represent 12% of the U.S. population, accounted for 71% of gonorrhea and almost half of chlamydia and syphilis cases. Overall, syphilis cases are up 18% from 2007. I had to laugh. The opening of this article by a woman named Maggie Fox, who writes for Reuters, this comes from Reuters, she opens this article with this. She's the health and science editor. "American squeamishness about talking about sex has helped keep common sexually transmitted infections far too common, especially among vulnerable teens," U.S. researchers reported Monday. American squeamishness about sex. Did anyone watch the American Music Awards this past week? I mean, really. Americans are definitely not squeamish about their guns. Smith & Wesson expects to double its annual sales in the next 3 to 5 years. Double. As demand for its firearms soars during this recession. Some say fear of crime is the reason. All over America, demand for firearms and ammunition is rising. This according to Smith & Wesson's website. People are concerned that the demise of the economy is going to lead to higher rates of crime. We have seen a little bit of evidence of that. Fears of terrorism apparently have helped lift demand as well, and concerns among gun owners that the Obama administration may introduce more restrictions on gun ownership and impose additional taxes. Smith & Wesson is expecting sales to rise by 30% in the first quarter alone, up to $102 million, after growing by more than 13% this year to $335 million. According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, where this article comes from, the FBI carried out more than 1 million background checks on behalf of gun dealers in September alone, an increase of 12.4% on the same period of the previous year. Mike Golden, chief executive at Smith & Wesson, said he believes it all has to do with the economy. People are worried about personal protection with unemployment and crime on the rise, he has said. He also indicates that 30% of customers who had bought the company's guns in the first half of this year were first-time gun owners, up from 9%. So it used to be 9% of gun sales was to first-time gun owners. That has shot up to 30% of gun sales going to first-time gun owners. Although there is no clear evidence of a surge in gun ownership among women, who now make up about 13% of gun owners, they expect that to rise as well because those first-time shooters are on the rise, and the fact that younger people are making the choice to become gun enthusiasts as well. So we may see a spike in female gun ownership in the Canisteo Valley, and most of us might say that's a good thing. Another good thing, okay, well, sort of, okay, not really. The BBC has abandoned plans to screen a ballet in London, unlike HBO, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, refusing to repudiate that anti-Christian Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. The BBC, after reviewing a play called In the Spirit of Diaghilev, decided to drop a specific section of the play. Why? Well, one of the acts, called Eternal Damnation to Sancho and Sanchez by Javier de Frutos, centers on a group of, quote, horny priests, quote, unquote, and a fictional hunchback pope who rapes eunuchs and pregnant nuns. There were boos from the crowd when a preview of the play was presented at Sadler's Wells, and a number of walkouts, and after extensive discussions, they had to have extensive discussions to decide that this was totally inappropriate, but they did indeed decide to drop that portion of the play, and the 3 other acts will remain and will be aired as planned during their December 18th broadcast. And this is all parts of their Christmas lineup. on the BBC. You've been listening to the Amy McManus Show on AM 1480 WLEA.